Hey guys, thank you for stopping by Building Wealth with Rajiv. There are people who like Tesla, who appreciate Elon Musk's mission. Then there are people who are called Tesla bulls. And then there are people who live and breathe Elon Musk's mission, Elon Musk's purpose, SpaceX, Neurolink, Boring Company, and of course Tesla. I think Warren is such a person. Warren is based in Florida. He started investing in Tesla in about 2015 and has been studying Tesla very closely since then. He's very active on Twitter, runs his YouTube channel on Elon's mission, Tesla, and whatever, anything related to Elon. His model says that the Tesla could be somewhere between 50 to $100 trillion company in the time to come. Currently, it's about $400 billion. We are talking about an increase of anywhere between 10 to 25 times, and that's huge. For more details and nuanced approach, please listen to this chat with Warren. And more importantly, tell me, what do you think about Warren's thinking and his estimates? For such discussions, like, follow, subscribe to my channel, and see you soon. So, I think a lot has been talked about Tesla's financial, and we come there, but I'm more interested in your journey with Tesla and Tesla stocks. So, I've heard, let's say, and I rate you very highly, Warren, for your faith and all that stuff. Not that it matters a lot, but just my personal conviction in you. When did you start buying Tesla shares, and what prompted that? Let's talk about that.
Sure. December 21, 2015,
Okay.
SpaceX. I started following Elon and Tesla probably 2008, 2010, 2012. I was always interested in technology and entrepreneurship. I followed Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, back in the 80s or whatever. So I've always kind of followed that stuff, the technology and the entrepreneurs from long ago. And, Jeff Bezos and Amazon and Zuckerberg and Facebook, all that. Maybe a little less Jack Dorsey and Twitter and Square, but I followed a lot of that. And so I was aware of Tesla trying to build an electric car. I was aware of SpaceX trying to fly rockets. And then December 21, 2015, SpaceX landed the first orbital rocket booster. And, I like science fiction. And that's probably the biggest example of science fiction becoming reality. And I saw that happen, and I started really paying attention. And at the time I was managing a family portfolio, and I was also managing my own investments. And I had a pattern of investing a small amount of money in individual companies, particularly Amazon in 2013. I bought Amazon in 2013. It's my greatest investing mistake. The stock 12x'd. And what was my mistake? My mistake was I didn't buy enough.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a nice one.
In 2013, I developed conviction that Amazon was going to be big, and I bought stock, but I didn't buy enough. So in 2016, 2015, this happens when they're landing the orbital rocket booster, and they probably landed a second one before I started investing. And I don't remember when the second booster landing was. I should probably look that up. I think December 21, 2015 should be a global holiday. That is one of the key moments. That is one of the biggest moments in the step towards humanity becoming multiplanetary. When historians look back and say, what was the trigger for humanity, expanding into
amazing.
space?
People don't realize that.
It's just a game changer in terms of cost. Yeah. That reduced cost of launching payloads to orbit by 10x. It's now 10% as expensive to launch. It used to be $10,000 to launch a kilogram to orbit. Now it's $1,000 to launch a kilogram to orbit. It might be less than that. I think SpaceX actually might have the cost lower than $1,000 per kilogram to orbit internally, right? It's because they're launching their own payloads. They're launching their own Starlink satellites. So you get that. And then, of course, Starship is going to, 50x that. It's going to get it down to $20 a kilogram from $1,000. So, but that's a key moment. So anyway, that happens, and I start looking more deeply into Tesla. And I bought a little, right? In February of 2016 was my first purchase. And of course, the price was much lower than it is today. And over time, I paid more and more attention to Tesla. I developed conviction. I was driven in part by a guy who can land an orbital rocket booster can probably succeed in other things. And I was a PayPal customer starting in 2003, I think. And I made more than $1 million in revenue on PayPal for my law firm.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I was aware of his, he created the first genuine online payment system. He created one of the first genuine online mapping systems with Zip2. So over time, I developed more conviction. This is a guy who can get things done. I started looking at what Tesla was trying to do. I started seeing, okay, I can see now, especially when Model 3 came out. I mean, Model S was a game changer, and that was already out when I started investing. And then you see what Model 3 is going to be, and you can see, okay, they're lowering the cost per mile, right? And so I kept buying stock, and I think it was 2019 was autonomy, and I'm buying stock all along the way. Like, I'm not buying any other stocks at this point.
Is that that was the only portfolio you had?
No. I have a portfolio with an extensive array of stocks at this point,
Okay.
and mutual and exchange traded funds, mutual funds, whatever. But when I get free cash in the account, a bond clears, or I decide to sell a stock, then I take that money and I'd buy a Tesla. So I'm gradually accumulating over time. And 2019 was probably one of the big moments for me for conviction was Autonomy Day, which is when Elon explains what happens when the vehicles become self-driving. And you end up with a world of robo-taxis and how much that lowers the cost of transportation and how the world is going to shift to, and I'm not saying Elon said all this, I'm just saying these were, natural conclusions. And at this point, I'm making YouTube videos. I started making YouTube videos about SpaceX, and then I started making YouTube videos about Tesla as well. I already had a channel for years, and I would make videos about politics. I would make videos about politics, or I'd make videos about criminal justice, because I'm a lawyer. And then I started making videos about SpaceX and Tesla 2019. And I watch Autonomy Day, and I really dive into Autonomy Day. And I see this robo-taxi future, and I see that Tesla is in the lead. So I start buying more. And I really start shifting my portfolio heavily into Tesla. And 2019 and 2020 were good years to do that, right? Because the stock went up a lot. Yeah. So, the stock is down right now compared to 2022, compared to the end of 2021. But compared to 2019, it's still up. So, my portfolio grew in part because I was buying more Tesla stock. The Tesla share in my portfolio grew in part because I was buying more Tesla stock. But in 2020, the stock just shot up. So Tesla became a much larger part of my portfolio just by its growth. And then I continued, and I still to this day, my conviction has only gotten stronger over time because I look and I see, we have that moment in 2000. This is one of the things I will say about why I have conviction in Tesla. In 2015, December 21, 2015, the global holiday I propose, SpaceX landed the first orbital rocket booster. They have now landed well over 100. I just watched the Falcon Heavy launch 2 days ago, where they let two boosters come back and land, right? And they're reusing them. They're reused boosters. Think about how much that saves on cost when you don't throw away a $50 million booster and you're able to reuse it. So you're dramatically... So that was 7 years ago. That was over 7 years ago now. No other company has even tried to propulsively land an orbital rocket booster. Rocket Lab tried to catch one. And I don't think they've tried to reuse a booster yet, but they did try to catch a booster, right? So Rocket Lab is the only one that's even close to trying to doing what SpaceX is doing. And so I look at Tesla, and I think Tesla has a similar 7-year lead. And not only do they have, and not only does SpaceX have a 7-year lead, SpaceX is accelerating faster than any would-be competitors, because Starship is going to go from $1,000 a kilogram to orbit to $20 a kilogram to orbit. Tesla, has gotten to the point where they're making cars that will travel a mile for about 15 cents, an average of 15 cents over the life of a vehicle. Maybe they're down below 15 cents, but they're around 15 cents a mile when you figure all the costs in. Other companies still haven't achieved that. Right? Other companies are still trying to catch up to the 2018 Model 3, which was 5 years ago now, right? And they still haven't really made a car that's as good as a Model 3 in terms of software, supercharger network, efficiency. You put it all together, nobody has really made a car that's as good as a 2018 Model 3 yet. And Tesla has a 5-year lead, let's say, or a little more than a 5-year lead. Maybe it's a 7-year lead on that. When you consider software and supercharger network, Tesla has a 7-year lead minimum. And they're extending the lead. They're accelerating because they're already working on the next generation platform that we're going to find out more about on March 1st, which will probably lower the cost per mile below 10 cents. Right? The cost of operating a vehicle below, like in America, it's about 70 cents a mile to own your own car. If you're going to ride in an Uber or a Lyft, it's about $2 or $3 a mile to get a ride. If you can lower the cost of the vehicle to 15 cents a mile where they are now, you can offer rides for maybe 25, 30 cents a mile. If you can lower the cost of operating the vehicle down to 8 cents, then you can offer rides for 25 cents a mile, still make a profit. Because, 8 cents a mile, roughly half the miles are not occupied, right? The car's empty. You can offer rides for 25 cents a mile. And that's still, by the way, I think you mentioned you grew up in India. That still doesn't lower the cost enough to make an impact in India. 25 cents a mile is still too expensive for the bulk of the Indian population. I'm actually working on a separate project. It's in the picture behind me to make a vehicle that's a penny a mile. An electric vehicle that's a penny a mile self-driving. And then you can sell rides for 5 cents a mile. And that's attainable for the bulk of the population of India and Egypt and Brazil and so on.
Is that your own business or something?
It's I hope it to. I'm working on it. It's not a business yet. I mean, there's a company, but it's not really a business yet.
Okay.
So that's how passionate I am, is that I've decided, okay, I've talked to high-ranking people at Tesla. They're not going to make this. They're not. I'm working on a single passenger vehicle. They're not working on a single passenger vehicle yet. So that's not in their roadmap at all. They have no plans to make a single passenger vehicle. That's not their target. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a reason they're not doing that. Like, they are smarter than me. Yeah. It's possible they've thought about it and they decided we don't need to do that. But I think it's worthwhile. I think if you want to reach the entire world to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, you have to deliver a radically lower cost per mile to attract the bulk of the population of countries like India and Egypt.
I just want to go back. So out of your whatever portfolio you built, Warren, Tesla is the one that gave you the maximum gains, is that?
Well, yeah, and Tesla is almost all of my portfolio now. I had substantial gains with Amazon over the course of time. I had substantial gains with Google and Facebook and Foundry Networks and F5 Networks. I had an Apple computer. There were periods of time when I made a significant amount of money on stocks, but I had never invested a lot in one stock before. No, my Amazon holding, just as an example, my Amazon holding grew to be a fairly significant part of my portfolio because I bought, a chunk. I bought like 5% of my portfolio on Amazon, and then it 12x'd, right? The rest of the market grew, but Amazon grew to be a much larger share of my portfolio. And at that time, I was, I still believed in keeping a balanced portfolio, so I sold some Amazon as it was rising, right? Which was arguably a mistake. Now, the bright spot is when I sold Amazon on the way up, I sold it and bought Tesla. So I sold some and bought Tesla. So Tesla rose more than Amazon in the following period.
So it seems like that you have a bit of a thing for the growth stocks, right? I mean, or a disruptive companies. Well, Amazon was disruptive in certain ways. Tesla is totally rule break.
Right. No, my strategy was S&P 500 index funds, and then a small percentage of the portfolio, 10% of the portfolio, play with other stocks.
Oh, okay.
Right? That was my strategy. And then when I developed conviction in Amazon, I let that grow larger than 10% of the portfolio. And then I tried to keep it in that ballpark. And then when Tesla came along and I really started diving into Tesla, I just dropped it. I just dropped the constraint entirely and I just bought Tesla. So Tesla is now over 90% of my portfolio. It was 96%, and then I added some cash to the portfolio. So it's now around 90% simply because I've got some cash in there that I have for other reasons. Okay. So,
and there was this talk about, again, that time I was not a big follower of Tesla like I follow now, day and night almost, but Tesla going bankruptcy and Elon saying that, the company
Tesla Q, sure.
And yet, how was that time for you? I mean, because that is like, sell all and, relax. And how did you, a lot of people will do it, Warren. Yeah, a lot of people will do it. And that's what
the standard investing advice is buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
So, and my attitude with Tesla is always when somebody says you should sell, well, what will I buy instead? And when you get to the point where you believe in the company, because this is the thing, like I didn't buy the stock. I mean, I bought the stock, but I invested in the company.
But right? The company was about to go bankrupt.
Okay. Well, at that point, I think that was 2018.
Yeah, around that.
The stock hadn't risen that much. It
Yeah.
was a significant part of my portfolio, but it wasn't that much because it hadn't gone up so much. And look, I haven't sold Arcimoto yet. I bought Arcimoto's down like 97%. I haven't sold it. Right?
Okay.
What's the point in selling it when it's down 97%? You're not getting anything back. Maybe they're going to pull themselves out of the fire. I don't know. If I make a bet, I ride it. If a stock goes up and I think they've reached a point where they're like not going to continue to grow as much, which is what happened with some of the companies that I sold off on the way, then I think you're selling. But if you believe in a company and then the stock goes down, I don't think you sell because the stock goes down. I'm investing in companies. I still believe Arcimoto has a chance of succeeding. And I think if they succeed, the stock will go dramatically up from where it is. So why would I sell it? And it's a tiny bit of my portfolio. Who cares? But I never, they were close to bankruptcy. I wasn't following. This is the other thing. I don't follow stocks on a daily basis. I've never followed stocks on a daily basis. I believe in your company. I'm putting my money in. I'll check back once in a while. I follow it more on a daily basis now simply because I'm active on Twitter and people are talking about it every day. Right? But I don't actively check the stock on a daily basis. It's just that other people, if the stock goes up a lot, people are like, oh, it's a green day. And if the stock goes down a lot, oh, it's a red day. And people are talking like, all right, what's the stock? Okay, who cares?
But now it was like 70% down, 60% down. And how were you looking at it? And you were indifferent.
We are selling our house, and I got divorced. We're selling our house. I'm going to get a chunk of money when we sell the house. And when we complete the transaction, when we get a buyer and we sell the house, I'm going to buy more Tesla stock. To me, it's a no-brainer. Look, back in 2018, it was the company might go bankrupt. Now it's like, well, the company might make less profits. Right? There's no bankruptcy threat anymore. And in the short term, profits might be a little lower or might not be as high as, honestly, like as I look at 2023, it's like, well, I don't think profit is going to grow as much this year as last year. Right? There's no threat of bankruptcy. It's not like the company's going to fail. And when I look out to, because I bought the stock because I'm investing in the company and I'm looking out to 2030, and 2030 hasn't changed. Right? My vision, the way I see Tesla developing out in 2030, which is pretty close to what they say, that hasn't changed.
This is what keeps me going as well, Warren. I think about 2030, and I think about the various catalysts coming in at a different period of time. That's what
I avoid catalyst thinking. I call him Barry Black, but that's a Gary Black way of talking.
So I think that is what intrigued me. Yeah, that is what intrigued me about your way of thinking as well. Because, look, I think a lot of people I talk to on channel talk about catalyst, the robot, and then FSD, and then robo taxis. But I think you went into this model of battery model, and you started coming out with the calculations very different, man.
Well, I model 2030 and I say, okay, if this is where I think they're going to be in 2030, then let's go back to 2023 and say, how much would I pay for a stock that's going to be that in 2030? Right? So like Gary Black, who's a short-term catalyst guy, he models $30 earnings per share and a 30 price earnings ratio in 2030, which gets you a $900 share price.
But like a schoolboy.
Well, I don't want to get personal with him, but he, that's his model. This is supposedly a bull. Is he's anticipating slightly greater growth in the S&P 500 over the next 7 years, right? And I'm looking at 2030 and I'm saying, okay, 3 terawatt hours of batteries, right, going into products that sell for $500 a kilowatt hour, and that works out to 1.5 trillion in revenue, and revenue last year was 80 billion. So that's about a 20x. That's not, a 9x. It's not a 4x. That's a 20x. And that's leaving out robo-taxis. That's leaving out bots. That's leaving out AI training as a service. That's leaving out, FSD without robo-taxi. That's just $500 a kilowatt hour, which is less than Tesla generates in revenue now on a per kilowatt hour basis. Right? Tesla used about 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022, and they made about $80 billion in revenue. So that's about $800 a kilowatt hour. I'm lowering their revenue per kilowatt hour to $500 from $800. Now, I think this year they're going to be below $800 a kilowatt hour. I think they're going to be closer to $700 a kilowatt hour or $600 a kilowatt hour, but they're still way above 500 a kilowatt hour. And then I think there are catalysts, but they're not catalysts for January. They're not catalysts for Q1 2023. They're at some point, and I can't project when, full self-driving, and I have full self-driving beta on my car. I had full self-driving beta starting in roughly August of 2021 on my Model 3, which my daughter now has. And I have FSD beta on my Model X Plaid. There was a gap where my 3 had beta, but I didn't have it on the X. But I've been basically driving FSD beta for a year and a half, close to a year and a half now. There's going to be a moment where they say you don't have to pay attention anymore. You can use your cell phone. You can read a book. You have to sit in the driver's seat, and you have to be ready to take over if the car prompts you to take over. But you don't have to pay attention anymore. That I think that will be the moment where people will decide, okay, I want that now. Right? Where it's safer than human, right? In nearly every situation. It's 2 or 3 times safer than a human driving the car. 2 or 3 times less likely to hit pedestrians, 2 or 3 times less likely to get in any kind of crash, right? And you don't have to pay attention. And now you can be productive in the car. You can do things while the car is driving you somewhere that you couldn't do before, right? And that's going to be a moment where a lot of people say, okay, I want that, and they're willing to pay for it. And at that moment, my anticipation is at that moment, Tesla will have something like 4 million cars on the road. Okay. Right now they have 3. No, they'll have more than 4 million cars. They'll probably have like 8 million cars on the road. This is a ball. Let's suppose at that moment Tesla has 8 million cars on the road that are capable of upgrading. Okay, and only 800,000 of them or 1 million of them have FSD, have already paid for FSD. So you've got 7 million cars out there, and half of them say, "Okay, I want FSD now," and the price is now $20,000. Okay, well that's a $70 billion revenue jump in a very short window, and it's almost all profit, right? Because you already paid for everything. The car, they already bought the car. You already accounted for cost of goods sold. There's basically zero cost. It's like 70 billion. It's like $70 billion in profit, right? On a company that had $80 billion in revenue in 2022,
Yeah.
right? Profit this year will be, 10 billion or so.
About 10% OP, you can say.
So what I'm saying is this might be 2024 or 2025 that all of a sudden there's going to be a surge of $70 billion of revenue in a short window, right? And then from that moment on, I suspect Tesla will not sell a car without FSD. So the average selling price, and I don't know what price they will charge for it, because when you get to the robotaxi world, when it's capable of acting as a robotaxi and you never need to take over, right? There's no steering wheel, there's no pedals, which I think they're aiming for 2025 for that moment. Maybe 2024, but very clearly the next generation vehicle that they start producing in 2024, they're very clearly aiming to have the robotaxi network up and running by 2025, if not 2024. When they're robotaxi capable, why would Tesla sell a car without FSD? And what would you charge for FSD? If a car is going to generate $500,000 in profit over the life of the car over the next 10 years, right? What would you pay for that car as a business owner?
So car becomes an asset, right? I mean, it seems
wait, let me be clear about this. You're going to buy a car.
Yeah.
Let's say now Tesla sells, the minimum price for a Tesla is $100,000, right? With FSD, that you can run it as a robotaxi. And that car is going to make you $500,000 in profit over the next 10 years. And it's still going to have some value at the end of life, right? That's not going to be worth $100,000 at end of life, but it's still going to have some value. What would you pay for $500,000 in profits over the next 10 years? And I'm going to say you would probably pay more than $100,000 for that. I think you might pay $200,000 or $300,000 for that, depending on the economy. You'd certainly pay $200,000 for it, right? That's my take on it. So why would Tesla sell cars for less than, let's say, $150,000 if they can sell every car they can make for $200,000? Right? You would sell every car you can make for whatever you can sell it for, and fleet buyers who are going to run them as robotaxis, right? And Tesla can operate the car themselves, right? They can have their own fleet, right? And they're going to make more than $500,000 in profit because they don't have to share their profit with Tesla, right? They are Tesla. So they, the robotaxi buyer who runs a fleet has to share a percentage of revenue with Tesla. If Tesla runs its own fleet, they get all the revenue, they get all the profit. So I see that Tesla either completely stops selling cars and builds its own robotaxi fleet, or it sells cars to fleet buyers. And then, Model S and Model X and the Roadster, they will continue selling to customers because they're not ideal robotaxis, and they'll sell them for a very high price, right? They will be luxury buyers for the extremely wealthy people who own a lot of Tesla stock, right?
It's not what Elon has come out with, this kind of roadmap for his company right now. It's just your guess.
Well, in 2019, he said that Tesla would have a fleet of 10 million robotaxis.
Oh, okay.
No, look, he hasn't said we're going to stop. I think he did. I think there was a tweet where he did sort of say we might stop selling cars. I think there was a tweet where he said that. But it's just a practical. If you go back in my channel, and I think I have a video, will Tesla stop selling cars? And I think I referenced that tweet in my video.
Okay. All right. I'll take a look.
If you look, it's really simple. If you do the math, if Tesla owns the car in its own fleet and it builds a big fleet, it has economies of scale, so its cost of operating the fleet is lower, and it doesn't have the transaction cost of the initial sale.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't a company want to capture all the profit it can? Now, there may be countries where they won't let Tesla operate the robotaxi fleet. There may be countries that say, we don't want you to have a monopoly, so you have to sell robotaxis to fleets. There may be countries where it's just easier to not build your own fleet. Maybe there's small countries where it's not worth it to build the infrastructure and you just sell them to people. I think that they've demonstrated a pattern that they may say, you know what, we could make more profit just keeping all the cars ourselves, but it makes sense to allow others to profit off of this, and we'll still make plenty of money. And our goal is not to make more money. Our goal is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy and sustainable transportation. And, I think the Hertz rental car company in the United States bought something like 100,000 Teslas.
Yeah, that was something that I've been.
And I think Hertz is not going to sell. They're not going to trade those cars in. They're not going to sell those cars. They're planning to operate a robotaxi fleet. They know that the rental car business model goes away when robotaxis go to 50 cents a mile.
What is like 2030? And you're talking about 20x. That is on 18 billion.
20x is, just be clear, 20x is a bear case.
My goodness.
Right? 20x is there's no robotaxi and there's no bot.
So you're talking about 3 trillion company, like
talking about what?
30 trillion company in terms of market cap. Where are you
I genuinely think that Tesla will be a 50 or $100 trillion company. If you look at robotaxi and you look at the profits that it generates,
mm-hmm.
In Elon's words, it's insanely gigantic. By the way, I have T-shirts at elonbits.com. I don't know if you can buy them in Singapore. And I have
I would love to buy one. I don't know how to do it. I know
it's elonbits.com. I don't know whether you can buy them in Singapore or not, but elonbits.com. Okay. But he had a quote. He was talking about the future of self-driving cars and the value that it generates, and he said it's insanely gigantic. And if you just do the math and you say, okay, if there's a fleet of 100 million robotaxis that's generating $30,000 a year in gross profit, let's say $20,000 a year in gross profit for 100 million robotaxis. Mm-hmm. Well, what's 100 million times 20,000?
Yeah, isn't it a bit of an ideal world, Warren? You're assuming. I mean that Tesla is the only one. It's like, sorry, I mean I'm not trying to be. I'm just not.
Well, we talked about the 7-year lead that they're stretching. Who else is developing a robo-taxi that can operate for under 10 cents a mile? Who else is developing that? There are companies that are working on developing robo-taxis, but nobody is working on producing them in volume to where they can and making them efficient so that they can operate for under 10 cents a mile. No one is doing that. And no one has, in order to develop a self-driving car that's safer than human, you need to do billions of miles. And you need to have massive supercomputers to do AI training. No one has a fleet. I mean, Tesla has a fleet of something like 3 million vehicles that are collecting data and generating data, and they have 14,000 GPUs in a supercomputer cluster, and they've got a whole entirely new supercomputer they've developed specifically for this purpose. Who else is doing what Tesla's doing? I mean, nobody has a comparable fleet, and nobody has a comparable supercomputer cluster, and nobody has a comparable group of engineers.
Yeah, but in terms of pure EV, I've been hearing a lot with the BYD comparisons and all that, but I know they're bullshit. I mean,
well, no, BYD makes some good EVs, right? There are other companies that are making good EVs, but they're not making self-driving software and hardware. They're not equipping their cars. Generally speaking, they're not equipping their cars with 8 cameras and a very powerful AI neural network computer in the car that's absorbing data. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not generating the data that Tesla's generating. You can have a fleet. Nobody has a fleet that's generating data like Tesla's fleet is generating, because their fleet is driving around and it's predicting what's going to happen. Each car is predicting what's going to happen. What's that object going to do? What is that object? It's identifying objects and it's predicting what they're going to do. It's identifying lane marking. It's predicting where the road is going to go. Right? It's making all these identifications and all these predictions. And when it gets something wrong, it saves that data and sends it up to the supercomputer. And the supercomputer is able to see all the data from all the cars and all the mistakes that they've made and train the cars to do better next time. Nobody else is generating that data.
No, I get that. I get that, and I think it's basically we got to see some reality coming up probably in 1 or 2 years. I think things will be different. Right now,
right, but getting back to the point, we were talking about catalysts, and I don't see any short term. I mean, I can play the short term games and say, okay, well, this might happen and that'll be a catalyst, and this might happen and that'll be a catalyst. I think the earnings report on January 25th will be a catalyst in one way or another. But Wall Street has demonstrated, the stock market has demonstrated that Tesla shows good news and the stock doesn't necessarily go up, right? And then somebody manufactures bad news that isn't even true, and the stock can go down a little bit, right? So there's a lot of little stuff that happens. Tesla does these big events like Battery Day and AI Day, and the market it get covered a little bit, but they don't get it. It's too complicated. You have to really dive deep. There's analysts who look at trends and they say, oh, when they get a $30,000 car, that'll do this. Like, they already have a $30,000 car. It's called the Model 3.
Yeah. No, I think let me just, you talked about your bear case, that your extreme bull case where you're talking about
100 million robo-taxis earning $20,000 a year in gross profit, right? 100 million times 1,000 is 100 billion, times 2 is 200 billion, times 10 is 2 trillion. That's 2 trillion in gross profit. That's leaving the rest of the business out. That's $2 trillion in profit.
And
right?
Have you built in Optimus and all that stuff?
No, that's before we get to the robot. The robot, it's so big, it's like I did an interview with Dave Lee.
Okay.
And I was asking Dave Lee about bot, and Dave is very conservative, and Dave tries not to get carried away. And I think he almost cried.
No, he's very passionate about it. I think he's most passionate about Optimus than anything else.
Let's talk about bot. Let's talk about bot for a second.
Yeah.
I think we're 2 or 3 years away from a bot that is able to do meaningful work. Okay? I'm guessing that we're 2 or 3 years away from a bot being able to do some meaningful work. I'm not talking about a bot is able to juggle. I'm not talking about that's able to dunk a basketball. Win a soccer game. I'm just saying a bot that's able to do some meaningful work. I don't know what Singapore's like. Do you have McDonald's in Singapore?
There's one, the biggest stop opposite me.
Okay.
It's very popular.
Okay. So they probably have, let's say, 10 people working at a given time. I'm making up a number, but let's say they have 10 people working there at a given time.
Yeah.
In America, a restaurant that had 10 employees, the cheapest employee would cost the employer about $15 an hour. They would be getting paid $10 an hour, but the cost to the employer, because there's other costs, works out to about $15 an hour.
Same here in Singapore.
And that employee works, let's say, 2,000 hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they work 8-hour shifts, 2,000 hours a year. 50 weeks times 40 hours is 2,000 hours a year. So you come up with a bot, and it doesn't replace one employee, right? It does the work of one employee. It doesn't take one employee's job and just do that employee's job, but there's a bunch of tasks that a bunch of different employees are doing, and the employer is able to figure out, hey, I can have the bot do these tasks that takes the load off my other employees, and I can reduce from 10 to 9, right? It takes out the garbage. It mops the floors. It does the stuff that humans don't want to do, right? It cleans the deep fryer. It does the jobs that humans really don't want. It's not flipping burgers. It's not interacting with customers. It's just taking the garbage. Okay, just routine, boring work. And it enables the employer to save $15 an hour on one employee's shift over the course of a year. But it does 2 shifts. Okay, so $15 an hour times 2,000 hours is $30,000 a year. The 2 shifts make it $60,000 a year. Okay, and it works for 10 years. So it saves the employer $600,000. Are you with me so far?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, so now that employer, if you were that employer, what would you pay for the bot? We just did this with the robo-taxi, right? What would you pay for something that's going to generate you $500,000 in profit? What would you pay for something that's going to save you $600,000 in costs? Well, I'm going to say you would pay more than $100,000 for that. Now, what does it cost? What's it going to cost to build bot at scale? Right? A Model 3 costs Tesla, let's say, $25,000 to build. Maybe it's $30,000, but let's call it $25,000 to build. A Model 3 weighs 3,500 pounds. Right? A Model Y has these big wheels and these big tires and, a whole bunch of, the bot weighs 125 pounds. Right? The car has a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. The bot has a 2 kilowatt hour battery pack. So the cost is arguably 1/25th, right? Just to make a simple number. The cost to Tesla to produce these bots is arguably $1,000. Now, I'll say, all right, Warren, you're crazy. It's going to cost them $5,000 to build a bot. Sure. I think you're nuts to say it's going to cost $5,000 to build something that costs $125. When you're going to build it in volume, it's going to cost less. But let's say it's $5,000. And it doesn't matter whether it's $1,000 or $5,000. If you're selling it for more than $100,000, your margin is 95% at $5,000. Your margin might be, you might sell it for $200,000. Right? And then, and what's the market for grunt labor that does that work?
It's huge. It's huge.
Right? And it gets to the point where, like, and then you think about applications like, well, what about when we have a colony when we have a base on the moon, or we have a colony on Mars, right? Humans don't really want to go outside.
Yeah.
Base. They don't really want to go outside the structures, but the bot doesn't care. It doesn't need air. Right? So the bot doesn't need a spacesuit. So the ratio of bots to humans on Mars and the moon are going to be like 10 to 1 or more. Right? And the ratio of bots to humans on Earth, think about this. What if the ratio of bots to humans on Earth is greater than 1 to 1? So how many bots are they going to make? Right? So let's go with like over time. So let's say to achieve 10 billion bots, right? How many bots are they going to make a year? Well, if they were going to do 10 billion bots and they made 100 million a year, it would take 100 years to get there. So if they made 100 million bots a year and they made $100,000 in profit a bot.
Yeah.
Okay, so that might not be 2030. That might be 2032 or 2035. Right? But let me just do that calculation again. Okay, 100 million bots a year at $100,000 in profit a year. Okay? $100,000 in profit a bot. Well, 100 million times 1,000 is 100 billion. Times 100 is 10 trillion in profit a year. Okay. Now, at some point, we're hitting some kind of now you could say, well, the economy isn't that big. Right. Well, the economy is.
Warren, there could be execution risks as well.
Well, wait, hang on a second. The economy is not that big. And I'm not saying all this is going to happen. I'm just saying this is sort of like, this is conceivable, right? And people want a common response is, well, the economy isn't that big. And it's like, it's going to be a lot bigger. Your cost of labor just went dramatically down, right? You're able to deliver labor at such scale. Like, say my numbers are crazy and you're only going to make $20,000 in profit a bot, right? Instead of 100,000. Well, now you only got $2 trillion a year in $2 trillion a year in profit to go along with the $2 trillion a year in the robo-taxi profit, right? And that's why when I look out to 2030, I see, and again, 100 million bots a year isn't enough.
I think if you talk about global 5 or 6 trillion in profits, and you take a multiple of 20, then this becomes what, 80 trillion already?
You're basically talking about $100 trillion company.
Yeah.
And Elon owns, let's say, 15% of it, and his net worth is 15 trillion on Tesla alone. And then SpaceX. I mean, if you want to talk, because you're interested in Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
So then SpaceX, Starlink is going to be a $5 trillion company. If you look at Starlink and you say they're going to serve 300 million customers at $1,000 a year apiece, and their operating costs are close to zero, right? Now you can do the math on that one. And then you say Neuralink. I mean, Boring Company. Do you follow Boring Company?
Yeah, I do. Well, I don't know so much about it, but I think it's progressing. But,
well, their current boring machine that they are now building, starting to build, 12 a year, does 50 miles a year of tunnel, right? But their next generation machine is aiming for 7 miles a day. 7 miles a day times, let's call it 8 miles a day times 250 days, and you're at 2,000 miles a year. Well, then in 10 years, how many miles of tunnel do they have when they build, 20 machines a year? They're going to go under every major city is going to have hundreds of miles of tunnel, and there'll be there'll be tunnels between every city. And if what's the profit per mile on a tunnel? What's the revenue per mile on a tunnel? It's a lot. If you have a tunnel that and you charge a small toll and lots of vehicles go through, you might be making, I don't know, $1 million a mile on a tunnel, or $100,000 a mile. But you do the math. The Boring Company is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company, and then Neuralink. You follow Neuralink, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so right now people are paying $1,000 for an iPhone. I don't know what they charge for an iPhone in Singapore, but they're paying $1,000 for an iPhone.
It's more than that. I mean, for $2,000.
Okay, well, a Neuralink is going to be way better than an iPhone, right? And people are going to pay People are going to pay $10,000 for a Neuralink, and everyone, the entire planet, is going to want a Neuralink, right? At first, it's going to cure brain disease, it's going to cure paralysis, it's going to cure blindness. But when it when it replaces an iPhone, everyone's going to want one. So that's 8 billion Neuralinks, right?
And then all these businesses not having competition, Warren. I mean, I'm not reading as much as you do. Let's say Neuralink, for example, is not going to get any competition, but there isn't any.
7 years ahead, and the lead is accelerating. It's every one of Elon's businesses, he's 7 years ahead, and the lead is and he's accelerating faster than the competition. Right? I mean, tell me. I mean, I've seen there's a company that's doing like a brain implant that goes up through the arteries, but it's nowhere near as capable as the current generation Neuralink. And the next generation Neuralink is going to be 10 times more capable than the current one. That's what I mean by accelerating. They're accelerating away from everyone else. And so, you ask yourself, where's the competition for SpaceX?
No way. That one I can clearly see none.
That doesn't exist. Where's the real competition for Tesla? I think there are some Chinese companies that are making some good EVs. I think Volkswagen is making some good EVs, but nobody is working on making them at the scale that Tesla is going to make them. And nobody is working
autonomous.
And nobody's working on the autonomy, and nobody has the supercharger network, and so on. And then, so I think that what ends up happening, at some point, Tesla gets so big that governments get really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what I was about to talk now, because it's like what Elon is doing is creating something which is unseen, unheard, but at the same time, the man is a loose cannon.
No, he isn't.
I mean, Warren, I mean, he ends up talking loose cannon in conventional sense. I mean, for example, he ends up speaking his mind in a way that can offend or which can polarize people, right? That's what I'm saying.
And no, I disagree with that. Okay, so first of all,
he's saying so much shit about the president of US.
Challenging. Well, the president of the United States says shit about him.
Yeah, but he's, look, the president. Yeah, I mean, yeah, come on. But
wait. You know this, right? That President Biden scheduled an electric vehicle summit.
I know that was
for producers of electric vehicles in America, and they didn't invite Tesla.
It's pathetic.
And for like a year, no one in the Biden administration would say Elon's name, or mention Tesla or SpaceX in any kind of speech. NASA officials had to talk about SpaceX, and Biden made jokes about Elon's trip to the moon when he's actually taking NASA astronauts to the moon for Joe Biden. Look, there's a reality, okay? So there's two sides to this point. One side is, at some point, regardless, as Tesla grows and gets that big, governments get uncomfortable. I think we can agree with that. Now, Elon's pretty smart. I think we can agree on that, right?
He's total genius.
So what is he going to do? He's going to make sure that governments get cut in on the profits right? They're going to get their tax revenue. They're going to get other benefits. He's going to like a really good example is the Boring Company. He's going to go to cities and say, I want to build a tunnel system for you. I'm not going to charge you anything, and I'll give you a cut of revenue. I'm going to solve your traffic problems. I'm going to make your population happy. They're going to love your new tunnel system, and you're going to make money on it.
You know why, right? Warren? I'll tell you one thing. A lot of people ignore it, and I haven't seen. I've lived in China for 6 years. It's the government there is a Dracula. It's a Dracula.
Yeah, sure.
And Elon has managed that. So you can see that person. You know that to me sometimes that's a. I thought this guy speaks his mind, but he knows when to speak his mind because he doesn't speak shit about Chinese premium. The day he does it, Tesla will be blocked in China.
And he knows that.
He knows that. So he's playing that game. And a lot of people don't talk about it.
Right. He can talk shit about Joe Biden because Joe Biden can't hurt him.
Yeah, because it's US, it's democracy, it's liberal.
I mean, Joe Biden's a figurehead. He's a figurehead. He has no real power. He appears to have power. He doesn't know. He can't find the bathroom. Joe Biden can't find the bathroom. So, you know, that's he reads from a teleprompter. Elon joked that, you know, the real power in America is whoever controls the teleprompter. Joe Biden has no power.
Yeah, no, I know.
If Joe Biden had power, SpaceX wouldn't have any contracts and Tesla would be shut down.
No, right? I heard that thing and I read this myself. Somebody asked him that, you know, your SpaceX landed. Did you get a congratulation from Joe Biden? Elon said, it happened at night. He must be sleeping that time. So he did make jokes about it. A couple of things I just want to ask you before. I think I'm clear on, you know, and I think it's good that, look, 100 trillion looks like a lot of money. I mean, you know,
I just want to address one further point that I do think that governments will get uncomfortable, and I think the solution to that is Elon's companies will split themselves up. They will spin off a Tesla China. They will spin off Robotaxi as a separate company. They will spin off Tesla Energy as a separate company. We didn't even talk about Tesla Energy, right? But they will spin off Tesla Energy as a separate company. They will find ways. Starlink will be spun off of SpaceX. It's very clear that Starlink is going to be spun off of SpaceX as a separate company. It's a good thing for investors, and it's a good thing to minimize the appearance of the size of the companies. If they're split off into different entities, then and you know, fundamentally, I have a theory about why Tesla is successful in China. Why the Chinese government allowed that. Okay, so China has a problem with air quality.
It has. Right? I was suffering with asthma there when I was there.
Okay, so it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how powerful you are. If you want to breathe clean air and you want your grandchildren to breathe clean air, you want the air cleaner. And there is one person on this earth who can really make a difference in making your air cleaner, and his name is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right? And you know, India has worse air than China now.
In some cities, yes.
And this is a sign of why you know that the Indian government is not responsive to its people. Is if the Indian government was responsive to, see, and this is the amazing thing, the Chinese government, you called them a Dracula, they are more responsive to their people than the Indian government, right? Because the Chinese said, you know what, this is important enough. Having clean air is important enough. It's not only important to the people, it's important to me. The people who govern India, they also have to deal with the air. They also have to, but they are so caught up in their bureaucracy that they are not.
And their own power.
Right, that they are, well, I mean, the Chinese have power. Right, the Chinese government
is one party system, Warren. China is not democracy. Right. So it's one.
Right. But I'm just saying that if the government of India, if the governments of India, because it's not just the national government, it's also the regional governments or the provincial governments, whatever we call them, states. If they recognized, wait a minute, I really want to breathe clean air. I want my grandchildren to breathe clean air. I want my citizens to breathe clean air. I would do everything I could to get Elon Musk a factory here. I would move everything out of the way to look. If he says I want to bring some electric vehicles into your country to try it out, I would drop the tariff and let's get these EVs here.
Yeah,
right? And they had that specific conflict. But you know, Elon, you know, if Elon is delivering to the people with power, the ultra wealthy get to travel to space because of Elon, right? They're going to be able to go to the moon because of Elon. They're going to be able to send people to Mars because of Elon. You know, you think that Biden has power. Who does Elon really serve with SpaceX? Who really benefits from SpaceX? It's the U.S. military. Who do you think really has power in America? Right? The U.S. military really likes Elon. right? Because he's launching their satellites effectively. He's delivering them now a satellite network for communications that's parallel to space to Starlink called Starshield, right? He's delivering to the U.S. military. He knows who has real power in America. He knows who has real power in China, and it might not be obvious to the public, but he knows that he can't offend those people. He needs to take care of those people, right? And as long as he takes care enough of those, he can offend some of them a little, right? Because it's not like one person's in charge of everything. Right,
No,
but if
I think he's smart. He'll manage, Warren. He knows. As I give you the example of China, because I've lived there. The moment you speak, you see Jack Ma spoke one thing, and where is he? Nobody knows. So
yeah,
I think Elon knows where to open his mouth and where not. No,
so
two
that's
more
my
questions.
point about him. That's my point about you. You called him like a, I forget what you said about him.
Loose cannon.
He's not that loose. He's a targeted cannon.
Yes,
He's
yes,
deliberate. He knows what he's doing. It's not loose. It's intentional.
it is intentional. Sounds like because it's a
If
bit
he
of a
was a
hype
loose,
role, right?
if he was a loose cannon, he would have said something about Xi Jinping by now, and
Yeah,
Tesla China would be shut down.
yeah.
He's
No,
not a loose cannon. He's a targeted cannon.
I buy your point. I totally agree with you. I don't know. I hope I live to see 100 trillion. I'm 50 now, but I would love to see that time. Two more
10
questions.
trillion would be okay, wouldn't it?
10 trillion will be okay. It will be lovely for me. My
Yeah.
money becomes 20 times. I'm good. Two
Yeah.
more questions. One thing is that when he started doing this Twitter thing, as a shareholder, what was the response? You follow another Singapore investor, right? The billionaire investor. I don't know whether you've been. I
KO
saw.
Guan Leo?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he blocked me, but I know who he
He
is.
blocked you. He also blocked
Yeah,
you.
it turns out I have more than one account. He blocked one of my accounts. They're so dumb they don't realize I have multiple accounts, and I still see what they're saying, or they don't care.
But he's a successful man, though. He's a very successful guy commercially, you know.
Not anymore. Not in the past year. He isn't.
Yeah,
His last year wasn't that good.
yeah, that's what he keeps complaining. But what was your view? Like he's spending so much of time on Twitter. You are a shareholder.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. We have we can call it a community of people who have invested in Tesla, who follow Tesla, and they're interested in the company in some way. And there is a view that I disagree with, that we are a community that has shared interests and we need to work together and we need to unify. Okay. And this is a false view. There are those of us who invested in the company because we believe in the company and we believe in Elon, right? And we're not just interested in the Tesla stock price on a daily basis. I moved to Cape Canaveral, Florida, and I go watch rocket launches in person, right? Because I'm excited about space. I don't think that KO Guan Leo has ever watched a rocket launch in person, right? There's a group of people who are much more about the stock than they are about the company, than they are about the mission, than they are about the future. They're just about the stock. And that's not the same community that I'm in, right? Okay. That is not the same interest. I'm interested in the stock, right? I own a lot of Tesla stock and I want it to grow, but I'm much more like I have enough. Like I'm not wealthy by KO Guan Leo standards, right? But I'm probably wealthier than 99% of the world.
Oh, you're wealthy by my standard for sure.
I'm probably I own a Model X Plaid, right? So that's I have a $150,000 car that's right there, right? I can see it out my window, right? But by Singaporean standards, I don't know that I'm that wealthy. Singapore is a wealthy place, right?
It is.
By American standards, I'm probably wealthier than 90 to 95% of Americans, right? I mean, fundamentally, if you have any money in the bank at all, right, if you have zero debt, because I have effectively zero debt, I have like a minimal amount of debt. Like I have a mortgage on a house that I own much more of the house than I owe, right? If you have net assets, let's say greater than $10,000, you have more wealth than like 95% of the world. Yeah. You think that's fair?
Yeah, I think so.
It's in the ballpark of correct, right?
Yeah.
And I have, certainly more than $100,000 of net worth, and so then I have net worth of more than 99% of the world, right? You'll see some number that like 10 men have more wealth than 99% than 90% of the world's population. It's like, well, yeah, that's because 90% of the world's population has nothing.
No, I get it. And this community thing you were talking about, so how does that fit into
Well, so the point is that you have this community of people, particularly on Twitter, who, when the stock is going up, everybody's happy, right? When the stock is going down, even if the company is doing well, even if the company is growing at roughly 50% a year, if the stock is going down, the people who are into the stock are not happy, right? I'm into the stock, but like, I literally, like, I've lost, I don't know, 60, 70% from the peak, right? I'm not worried at all. I don't see a problem, right? I didn't buy on margin. I didn't play options games. I'm not a short termer. I'm looking at 2030. 2030 hasn't changed. Why would I be worried about the stock? I wasn't planning on selling this year. I'm not planning on selling next year. So it doesn't matter what the stock price does in the short term. If the stock stays down, it means when I have free cash, I can buy more. Where's the problem? Right? My cash flow situation is negative right now. But in a month or two, it's going to get a lot better. And by the end of this year, it's going to be a big positive cash flow. If we could keep the stock down through 2024, I'd be able to buy a lot more stock. I'm perfectly happy to have the stock low because I'm buying, right? I mean, emotionally, there's like a small part of me emotionally that wants the stock to be higher. But so the point is that there's people in the community, you see FSD improving. They don't care. You see production grow 47%. They don't care. Vehicle production. You see Tesla Energy. They said on the Q3 investor call that they're expecting Tesla Energy to grow 150 to 200% a year for the foreseeable future. They don't care. You've got a battery factory, forming up. You've got a cathode facility being built. You've got, 4680 cell production, growing fast. They don't care. I think they said that 4680 cell production is growing, tripling every quarter. Right? That's 200% growth quarterly. Right? So there's so much good news at Tesla if you care about the company and the mission. So, I am about the company and the mission way more than I am about the stock. Personally, I'm invested in the stock, right? My personal life gets better if the stock goes from $100 a share to $1,000 a share. My net worth looks a lot better, but I'm not selling. I'm not selling at $1,000 a share. I'm not selling at $2,000. At some point it gets so big that I decide, I'd like to have a nicer home, right? And I sell a little to buy a nicer home. Maybe, because I don't really need, I lived in Japan in a tiny apartment, right? I'm living in a modest place right now. I mean, it's probably nice by Singaporeans, by the standards of most of the world. The place I live is very nice, but by, I would say, even middle class American standards, this is not that special, right? Although I'm a 10-minute walk from a very nice beach where I can watch rocket launches. At some point I may decide, okay, I'm going to sell a little because I want to buy some things to make my life better or make my children's lives better, right? But I don't have any need for that. My plan is to just grow my wealth and get to the point where I can, like, I have this idea for this business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes up at a certain point, I can fund that business myself, right? I can build the business myself, and so I might sell some to fund this business, right? I mean, I'm spending a little bit of, yeah.
I get it, Warren. Your intentions are really great. I think it's a difference of opinion. How things are coming.
No, it's a difference in goals. It's a difference in goals. The Gary Blacks of the world are focused on the stock price, and they don't care about the company. They don't care about the mission. They don't care about it. Gary Black doesn't care about accelerating the transition to sustainable transportation and sustainable energy. He does not care. He does not care about delivering bot and how bot can make the world a better place for everyone. He doesn't care that bots can help out with caring for elderly people, right? He doesn't care that bots can make fast food restaurants operate more efficiently and save money for small business owners. He cares about the stock price. He has never talked about how bot can change the world. Dave Lee understands the mission.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
Right? Dave Lee gets it. James Dalma gets it. Right? Rob Maurer gets it. Stephen Mark Ryan gets it. The limiting factor. Jordan Gieseke, the limiting factor. He gets it. Darren Yoon gets it.
Emmett,
right?
I don't know whether you've talked to Emmett or no. Emmett?
I think Emmett's a little bit of both, but I think Emmett gets the mission. Yeah, Emmett and Matt Smith, they get the mission. And Matt Smith is really into energy, Tesla energy, but they are more focused on the stock than I am. But I think Emmett gets the mission as well.
He's a hedge fund manager, so he's bothered about the stock price too. But I think,
well, he's also like an options short-term trader type of guy.
But he's in the stock fund 2013.
But he still gets the mission. He
Yeah.
still gets the mission. That's an important distinction. If you watch Gary Black, he doesn't get the mission. Even Ross Gerber gets the mission, right? But Gary Black does not care about the mission. He doesn't care about sustainable energy. If he thought he could 10x his money on an oil company, he'd buy an oil company, right? I don't invest in oil companies. I don't invest in fossil fuel companies. I invest in companies that are changing the world, right? And right now, Tesla is that company. And as soon as it becomes possible to invest in SpaceX or the Boring Company, like becomes reasonable, because I've had opportunities to invest in SpaceX and the Boring
You can
Company,
buy
but
the private equity route. SpaceX
it's
you can buy.
not called private equity. It's called
What do you call
venture cap. It's called venture
venture
capital.
capital? I think
It's a little different than private equity.
some of my friends have bought it. Some of my friends have bought
There's
it.
ways of getting in, but it's very expensive to buy in. It's like a 6% commission to buy in. You pay 2% a year to the people who are managing the fund. They get 20% of the gain on the way out.
Oh, that's pathetic.
So from an investor perspective, and I know I'm not adding value there. They don't need my money. They got other people's money. But as an investor, from a stock perspective, I'm going to make as much money on Tesla stock as I'm going to make on their stocks. So
Why? Yeah, I think Warren. I think it's a good note. I think it's the spirit of time, and I think it's amazing. And I believe you're far more passionate than I am, but I'm also very passionate about people who are changing the world for better.
well,
And
do you have children, right?
I have two,
You have
16
okay.
and 14.
You want them to breathe clean air.
No, I am very passionate about. I think Warren. The reason I've left India, and I'm saying in this telecast is that I think clean water, clean air, roof overhead. I think everybody should get it.
Before we went live, I think you said one of your children doesn't like Elon Musk. I would ask you this: do your children think it would be great if humanity could go into space?
Okay, so they're very okay. A lot of people, I do not know, Warren, you know about this or no. There are some, they think that, and they don't get it. It's like FUD, right? The bad side, negativity spreads faster. The perception is, okay, Elon Musk is hugely capitalist, and
He is. Yeah.
there's nothing wrong in that. No, that's the money drives the world, right? As long as his profit and purpose go together, what's like that? And
it's not that money drives the world. It's that a system where business owners earn a return on capital. This is capitalism, right?
Yeah.
Means that business owners invest, and that increases the productivity. Capital increases the productivity of labor, and we all have more. If you don't have capitalism, then people don't invest in improving production, and we all have less. Right? It's a question of, do you want people to have more or do you want people to have less? Capitalism has delivered us a world where we all have these little supercomputers. We all have these little supercomputers. We all have these toys. We're able to communicate. This communication that we're having now does not exist without capitalism.
No. Look, I'm a capitalist by nature.
But I'm just saying. So the socialism and communism are a cancer on human society, on humanity, right? And the ideas spread. The idea is toxic. But if you just say, show me a socialist country that has delivered a product, that has delivered a game-changing product for the world, and I can give you one product, the AK-47. The AK-47 rifle was produced by the Soviet Union. That's the one mass-market consumer product that is still widely popular in all the world.
That was used a lot in Pakistan and India.
Yeah, well, I have one.
You have one?
I have one, yeah.
Okay, so
that's the one. That's the one example of a really good consumer level product that you can buy that was developed in a communist country, right? The AK-47. Give me another one. I'll wait. Right, and that's a product that most people who are socialist or communist in their tendencies don't think is a good product.
No, as I said, I've lived in China for 6 years. They call themselves a communist, and there is no bigger capitalist country than China. I can tell you that.
I 100% agree. Here's what the Chinese leaders figured out. This is what I think Deng Xiaoping figured this out, and he persuaded the rest of the Chinese leadership. He says, you know what? We can keep our country poor, and then we can't steal very much from our people because they don't have anything. If we could make our country wealthy, we could steal a lot more money from our people. Right? If our people have more money, we can steal more from them. That's basically that's how you win over governments. If you let your economy grow, if you do these steps, this is how, if Elon could if I could get in a room with the leadership, the top 20 people in India, and I'd say, listen, right now you're stealing money from your people, but they don't have anything. If you just look at what they did in China, if we can get ourselves together to just get to the point where we let business owners earn a return on capital, right, and stop getting in their way, then the economy here will grow 10 to 20 or 100x, and you'll be able to steal so much more money from your people.
That's a good way to see it. I hope somebody in Indian government watches this podcast. My family is in politics. They might. Okay, Varun, thank you so much. Lovely talking to you. And I think, look, it may not matter for you, but keep it up. I mean, I love your tweets. Speak your mind, speak your heart, live your passion. And, and you'll find people who will run after you, who will support you,
this is another thing that people think that I'm like suffering from this. Like I get irritated, right? I have like moments where I get angry and stuff, but the practical reality is my Twitter following is growing. My YouTube subscribership is growing. I've got this other platform. Let me just mention really quick. I have a platform called The Daily Lie. The Daily Lie. It is like, it's off YouTube. It's on a free speech platform called Local. So it's warrenredlick.locals.com.
Okay.
And on that channel, I can speak without fear of censorship. I'm not doing anything that legitimately should be censored, right? I'm not talking about child pornography, or I'm not doing anything bad like that. I'm just talking about ideas. But those ideas get censored on YouTube. So on my YouTube channel, I'm very, very limited in what I talk about related to politics or related to.
I'll go and check it out.
So it's Warren Redlick. It's Warren Redlick. And so that platform is growing actually very well. I'm now making more money on The Daily Lie than I make on YouTube. So I'm growing. I'm using YouTube to grow that, and then eventually I'm probably going to shift to producing most of my content on Twitter.
I'm not. Yeah, I know. Look, I'm not saying that you need any support or anything, but all I'm just trying to say that a lot of what you're doing is correct. Also, I mean, obviously, you can be a little bit too outspoken, Warren, and but
the point I'm making is that I appreciate kind words, and I hear you, and I appreciate that you're saying kind words to me. I want you to know that you're not the only one. I get a lot of support. Most of the support I get is in DMs. That is not public. There are people who say things publicly that support me as well, but I get a lot of support from people who prefer to remain. They don't like. I don't mind the controversy. I don't mind being the one who takes the arrows. That's one of the things that's great about Elon too, by the way. I do aspire to be more like Elon. I want to be a mini Elon, right? I want to create a little EV company, right? I have a little solar project I'm working on, right?
Yeah.
I will never be 1,000th of an Elon, right? But I can be inspired by Elon and I can aim to be 1,000th of an Elon, right? If 10,000 of us aimed to be achieved 1,000th of an Elon, then we would have 10 Elons, right? So, Elon is not afraid to take arrows, and I'm not afraid. And there are people who don't want to take arrows, but appreciate that I'm willing to say the things that they want to say but can't.
I totally get it, and I'm kind of.
And I hear from them all the time. People have no idea. People have no idea how much I hear. So, like, I don't know if you've noticed, Gary Black blocked me a couple of months ago, but I keep seeing his tweets. Why do I keep seeing his tweets? Because people keep DMing me saying, "Did you see what Gary said today? Did you see what this person said? Did you see what KO Guan Leo?" Like KO Guan Leo and Gary and Ross have me blocked, but people keep sending me what they're saying. I get 10 DMs a day from people saying, "Hey, you got to respond to this," right? So I know I have lots of support. I know and here's the thing: the people who don't like me, this is a fundamental truth. Liars hate truth tellers. Okay, politicians who don't like Elon. Elon does a lot of things. You can disagree with Elon. He may be overly optimistic sometimes, but he tells the truth, right? And this is not something I got from Elon. I've always been a truth teller. And I've always had conflict because I will call out the liars. A lot of people will let the lies go. I call out the liars. I call out the people who have the wrong motives. And I tell the truth. And liars hate truth tellers. And there are a lot of people who are swayed by liars. So there is an audience that says, "Oh, bad Warren man," right? There's a joke in America that Trump, the complaint about Trump was bad orange man, right? Because he had orange hair. Right, bad orange man. So it's like bad Warren man. And there's people who fall for it. There's people who believe that Gary Black is the savior and Elon is the problem. Right? You basically have to believe that Elon is the problem to follow Gary Black. Right? Because Twitter overhang is Elon bad. right? Elon mad bad. And you know, the board of directors, we need a new board of directors member. We need to fix the board of directors. That's saying that Elon isn't doing his job, and we need the board to get Elon to do his job. That's Elon mad bad. That's, you know, Elon said this about politics. Elon mad bad. Elon did this. You know, the stock fell because of Elon. Elon mad bad. Right? So I can take a little Warren man bad, but Elon knows, and I know, Elon's Twitter following is growing, right? He knows that he's mostly supported by people. He knows that most people get it. And there are people who have a dwindling, they have a following, right? Who want to believe in false prophets. This happens in every community and every movement, that different leaders pop up, different people grab attention, different people build followings, and some of those people take people away from the original mission. And Gary Black takes people away from the original mission. Or he brings people in who aren't attuned to the original mission, right? He brings people who are interested in the stock rather than people who are interested in the mission, right? I'm in the mission.
I get it.
And lots of people buy the mission. Lots of people get the mission. And Elon just made sustainable transportation much more affordable by lowering prices worldwide, right? And yeah, Joe Biden doesn't like Elon, but somehow the federal government adopted a new tax policy that is very favorable to Tesla, right? It's not perfectly favorable to Tesla, but it's largely favorable to Tesla. And now all of a sudden, the average Toyota Camry buyer in America can buy a Tesla Model 3 for the same price. The average Toyota Highlander buyer can buy a Model Y for the same price as a Toyota Highlander. And all of a sudden, electric vehicles just became a lot more affordable. Sustainable transportation became.
So I think he's doing. There's hardly any doubt on that. That I think he's doing a lot more than any other CEO or founder is doing at scale for the community and the world. So I think long live Elon, obviously, for me, Warren, and for you too.
Yeah, can I just make one more point?
Yeah, Warren, sure.
So one of the complaints of the Catalyst people, right? This is specifically a Gary Black statement, was Elon needs to get away from Twitter, get back in the factory, needs to get to work on the $30,000 car, right? Which is Gary Black having a very a very poor understanding of what Tesla is doing. The Model 3 is the $30,000 car, right? They're selling the Model 3 in China for $33,000. That's effectively creating a car that's 10% less expensive than a Model 3 is not a game-changing development. And if you listen to the Q3 investor call, you know that the goal is not a $30,000 car. The goal is an $18,000 car or a $15,000 car. The next generation vehicle is not going to be a $30,000 car. It's going to cost $15,000 or $16,000 to manufacture. Maybe they're going to be able to sell that thing for less than $20,000. Like if they can sell a Model 3 in China for $33,000, they will be able to sell the next generation vehicle in China for $18,000. It's not a Camry killer, it's a Corolla killer.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the game. And they're going to produce that in such high volume. They're going to produce that vehicle in such high volume, and it's going to be in such demand because it's going to deliver transportation, sustainable transportation at so much lower cost than a gasoline car that no one's going to want a Corolla. You're not going to buy a Corolla.
And that's the mission. I read about 2006 letter, which Elon wrote. It was 2006 or 2005, where he wrote down his mission that we'll start with the more expensive one, then we'll come down to the cheaper one. So I think if you look at that, then you can just see that how ruthlessly, how successfully that man has implemented the vision. It's remarkable. Right. It's remarkable how he could see what he would do, and he's done it ruthlessly. Okay, Warren, I think we should chat sometime again, but thank you so much. And wish you all the best with your new venture. And I'm going to tune into your new channel, and I'll come back to you.
All right, great. And t-shirts at elonbits.com.
Yeah, sure, Warren. I would like to buy one.
All right.
Take care, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.